All right, everybody. I think we are live. I'm going to hang out here and just make sure. Let me pull open my phone as usual. If you're jumping in here and you're seeing us talk and hey, make sure we get good video, audio. Yeah, I can see us on the phone. We're rocking this thing. Shout out some video, audio to make sure we're strong. I got Brian Kurtz in here today, and Brian, it's so great to have you here. I can't wait to dive into some content and talk about real stuff, particularly in all this Corona time. People get
Yeah,
their heads back in the game and figure out what to do. So, man, super glad you're here. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Westport, Connecticut, and it's funny. I'm getting my head in the game because that's my Corona. That's my Corona hair. Um, so excuse the hat, but I feel like I don't want anybody looking at my. Well, they'll look at my hat, but I don't want them looking at my hair when I'm talking.
No, we all get it, man. We're all getting the Corona hair. I can't wait to get back to the barbershop.
Oh God, and I don't want to go too soon, but I want to go.
Blandon, great to see you. And Sandra, great to see you too. Fantastic to be here with you. So first of all, before we dive into any content, because we're still a couple minutes early, I don't usually start these things till 10, but so you have some crazy cool memorabilia behind you. What's going on with all that? Is it just fun decorations or do they mean something?
No, everything I have back there means something. That It's a Wonderful Life and Pulp Fiction would be two movies that you would never get them mixed up. Um, I'm a huge Tarantino fan because of creative and because of how he writes a script. In fact, someone gave me as a gift a Pulp Fiction script signed by John Travolta.
No way.
And it's an amazing script. I mean, besides being a wonderful movie and all of Tarantino's films, even when people like criticize his films, they say, it was a little slow. And boy, I have never found a Tarantino film. Like if you watch Inglourious Bastards, for example, and
Yeah.
there's a scene, there's two scenes and three scenes in that movie that are just incredible. The one in the farmhouse when they're sitting there, and it's a long time when they're having this conversation. And
Yeah.
then there's the other one in the bar when he shoots up all the guys. And
Totally
then there's
noted.
another one when the girl is having like a cake with the guy in a coffee shop. And those kind of scenes are just so amazing because of the script, because of the flashbacks, because of everything. So
Yeah.
I'm a big Tarantino. It's a Wonderful Life is just, Frank Capra. He's a great director, and I did a webinar with Ben Settle talking about Capra. I could maybe punch that in before we leave. And
Okay.
then Mariano
Let
Rivera
me just
is. Oh, go ahead.
let me welcome a few folks. First of
Okay.
all, because I want to hear your responses to this. So CN, great to see you. Joe, great to see you. William, great to see you. Alex, awesome. Thanks for being here. Wave back at you. And then Mike, Mike, let me get this name right. Clendon. How did you get my hero in your group? Exclamation points, all caps. Mike is obviously a super fan, sir. So Brian,
Wow. What's his last name? I want to see if I went to
CLAN.
check. I wanted to see if I spelled his name right.
Yeah, CLANDENEN.
Yeah, I think I spelled his name right on the check. You'll get your check later,
That's perfect. Brenda, awesome to see you. Good morning. So Mike, sorry, Mike, I'm horrible at names. It's Clen, CLEN, Clendenin.
and
There, I'm
then
nailing it. He spelled it out for me and he like, sorry, dude, I'm the worst. Anyway, so glad you're here, Brian. So back to movies real quick. Finish your statement there, Brian.
yeah. So the Capra thing is just, he just was an amazing populist filmmaker who, it's always the hero and the villain. I mean,
Mhm.
Ben Settle and I did, as I said, a webinar, and we talked about the conventions that Capra used in the 1930s, 40s that
Huh,
they're so prevalent in direct mail and direct
you're right.
marketing today. There's a lot of, it's basically, the story arc of, the hero. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is actually my favorite uh,
Mhm.
Capra film, but that It's a Wonderful Life there was given to me as a gift at an awards ceremony. I mean, you can see my face. Maybe can't see it. My face is cropped onto Jimmy Stewart's body. and it says Brian Kurtz and Donna Reed, so that's why I have it up there.
So awesome.
And then just quickly, Mariano Rivera, who is a Yankee. Those of you who aren't baseball fans, he was the closer for the Yankees. He's the best closer who ever lived. And by closer meaning they get the last 3 outs of the game. He has more saves than anybody in the game. And he did it and the other thing is that I'm a Met fan, and in New York, you can't be a Met and a Yankee fan. It's just impossible. You have to vote one. So I'm a Met fan, but Mariano Rivera, who was a Yankee, is my favorite player. And the reason he's my favorite player is that Mariano Rivera had one pitch. It was a cut fastball that would come in, and then it would just drop at the last minute. No one could hit it, basically. Mm-hmm. And he used that pitch like 95% of the time. He rarely pitched anything else but that pitch. So you knew it was coming, and you still couldn't hit it. And then the thing he did was he was willing to teach it to any young pitcher or any pitcher who wanted to learn it, which I thought was great. It's sort of like competition is coexistence. And that's one of my themes in my book. And so he would just be, and I think he would teach it to you if you wanted to learn it, because he probably figured you couldn't do it better than him. And if you did it better than him, that would raise the bar for him and then make him even better, which I thought was, pretty cool. And, and he's just an unselfish, just not your typical athlete. And in fact, when he came into a game, they used to play Enter Sandman by Metallica. And so they asked him once, "Oh, so you're a big heavy metal fan?" He goes, "No." He said, "What would you come into if you chose your own music?" And he said, "Oh, I'd come into a church gospel or something." He's very religious, and it's so weird. Like Metallica and Mariano Rivera don't go together, but they went together his whole career. He's an amazing, just an atypical athlete. He goes back to Panama. He's rebuilt parts of the country. He's created baseball fields for young players in Panama. So he's there because I just think so highly of him, and he's somebody that I really look up to.
Well, let me pivot off of that, because obviously we have folks in this group right now watching you who are huge fans of yours and love your willingness to teach us. So drop some truth on us, some serious knowledge. So Brian, you thought of this tag or this title for this conversation: creative is the least important element of any marketing campaign until it isn't. Explain that.
Yeah, so it ties into the rule of direct marketing, which is the 40-40-20 rule. Whether it's it's something someone made up probably in the 1960s or 70s, and it pretty much applies today. And what that says is that the success of any marketing campaign depends on 40% on the list, 40% on your offer, and 20% on the creative. I thought of this because you said a lot of the people here are creatives, maybe copywriters, agencies, that kind of thing. So I thought the creative would be a good place to jump off, and I'll take questions on anything. But so I changed that in my book, Over Deliver, where I said, to me, it's the 41-39-20 rule. Basically, I wanted to make the list the most important thing, because it is. If you have the right list, that's 41%. You have I'll say an average offer, you give away a premium or you bonus or whatever. And so that's 39. And then you say the creative is only 20. Well, is the creative half as important as the list or the offer? No. What that says is that if you got the best creative from the best copywriter, the best agency you could find, and you mailed it or emailed it or put it online to an audience that was not targeted for your offer and for the creative, you're going to get 0 orders. I'll guarantee it. The opposite says that if the list is really targeted and segmented, you have a decent offer or really good offer, and you throw like a red box with a red flashing arrow at it, you're going to get some orders. So the creative is the least important. However, once you have the list and the offer dialed in, the creative is the most important. And the reason why I say that is that after mailing, I only have I'm not bragging, but it's not bragging if you did it. I've mailed like over, well over 1 billion pieces of direct mail, and probably a billion more impressions online.
A
And so,
billion pieces of paper, and oh, it's amazing.
yeah, it's a lot of postage and a lot of paper. But I wasn't mailing it, because I wanted to waste money. I was mailing it because my lists were targeted. My were always amazing, not mine, my company's boardroom. And
Yeah,
then what I did with the creative was that I went to world-class copywriters. I mean, I had the privilege in my career. I'm not, this isn't bragging. This is like just, I feel privileged that I've worked with the best copywriters who've ever lived over the last 4 years. And so the biggest lifts in response I've ever gotten were not from changing the list or changing the offer. I get lifts from both of those. But if I have a list that's already good, if I have an offer that's already good, and I go to a world-class copywriter to give me creative, that's where I always got the biggest lifts, from the creative. And so
yeah,
that's where I got the 100% lifts as opposed to the 20 and 30% lifts. So
yeah.
that's what I mean by creative being the least important until it isn't. But you have to get the list and the offer really dialed before you do that. And I just wrote a blog post this Sunday on Clayton Makepeace, who just passed away. He's one of the greatest copywriters in direct
Mhm,
response
yeah, I
that
know.
ever lived. And
Mhm.
sadly, he just passed away. And I talked about him in the spirit of someone who wrote our first Magalog control. A Magalog is a format in direct mail that's 20 to 24 pages long. It looks like a tabloid like magazine,
Yeah,
and it's basically an amazing format that you can put a lot of content in, but you give away some of the steak, but not all of it. Whereas
mhm,
direct mail in the 70s and the 60s was all about all sizzle and the steak you had to get when you got the product. The
yeah.
Magalog gave you an opportunity, and the Magalog was working for my competitors. And I did 3 Magalogs, and none of them worked. And I went to my direct mail guru, Dick Benson, at the time, and I said, "Should I give up on this Magalog format?" He says, "No. You should. The Magalog is perfect for your company boardroom because no one knows who you are. So
Mhm.
it's a great way to tell a story, to give away some steak, to talk about who you are, all of that. And you basically already do the best work I know in lists and offers. So
Mhm.
your problem is clearly that you got the wrong copywriter. So the 3 packages I did in the Magalog were just, they lost because I had the wrong copywriter. And that's when I got Clayton. And the reason why I told the story is
Yeah.
Clayton wrote our first Magalog control. And then the Magalog for the next, I don't know, it was 94. So for the next, I don't know, 20 years, we mailed more Magalogs than anything for any of our book offers. Like, and that
Wow.
package that he did mailed 16 million pieces on its own. So
Wow.
it just shows that, the format can make a difference and the copywriter can make a big difference. So again, a situation where the copy and the creative was the most important once you have your list and your offer dialed in.
So once you have your list or audience and your offer dialed in, that creative becomes the king. If you have the wrong creative and the right list and offer, you lose. If you have the amazing creative but the wrong audience or the wrong offer, you lose. So a question coming up here. First, welcome. Wow, lots. Franklin, Deborah, and Michael and Dennis. Thanks for all jumping in here. And then Mike has a question. How did you find Clayton? And how do we
How did
find
I find
somebody like
Clayton?
that yeah, how do you find somebody that talented?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, we had an advantage at Boardroom. We were, one of probably the top 5, I guess it would be called info publishing, but it was, we were one of the top 5 mailers at the time of information products like newsletters and books and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So there were writers that were writing for that marketplace. I think I found Clayton probably through Phillips Publishing, who was using him. I mean, the thing about finding, and I get this all the time, can you find me a good copywriter, Brian? And it's the wrong question, because copywriting is not a commodity. It's such a specialty. It's such a talent that these guys and women have to write something that makes you pull out your credit card or write a check, and not because they're trying to fool you, because they are persuasive with how they write their copy. So the question would be, if I was asking me, Brian, can you find a good copywriter? No. Can you find a good copywriter who's written for this kind of category, or someone who has a track record and such and such? You have to decide what level you want.
Yeah.
Do you want an A lister? You want a B lister? You want a C lister?
Because you're going to pay to play, right?
You got to pay to play.
Yeah.
And so, the A listers are, few and far between. I mean, when I say few and far between, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 30, I don't know. And that's out of hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of copywriters.
Yeah.
So you have to really dig to find the copywriters. And the one thing I did discover through my career was that there were basically 7 characteristics that were prevalent in every great copywriter I ever worked with. All of the A-listers had these things in spades. I'll do them quickly. The first is hunger, basically that you had the hunger to always beat the control, always do the best research, everything. Hunger was, a big one. 2 was having insatiable curiosity. That could be number 1 also. That's the idea. This is like real time. I'm sure my mother's calling.
This is so, I love your picking up and hanging up the phone.
Yeah, if it's my mother, she'll be mad, but that's okay. So so it's like going deep in any one thing until you get to the truth. It was like Gene Schwartz, who was a copywriter for us, and he's a mentor of mine. I used to give him a book. I said, "You want to write for this book?" He says, "Yeah, but what's not in the book? Like, go to your editors and get me more stuff that I could write about that's even more."
Yes, I'm gonna pause you where you're at, because the next question ties into this. So keep answering, but the next question.
Okay, that was number 2. Okay.
The next question is, how did Gene Schwartz interview clients to listen for copy? I think you're going there, but that's the question. So there you go.
Yeah, that's a great question. Someone who knows my work, I think that I talk about this. That I think that insatiable curiosity. That was great because it does tie in. That the best copywriters are all fantastic interviewers. And in fact, when Gene Schwartz wrote the launch package for Boardroom Reports, which was the newsletter that got my company going in 1972, I wasn't there yet. I got there in 81. But it was basically Gene Schwartz spending days with Marty Edelstein, who was the owner of the company and the founder, interviewing him about what his vision he wanted to do with the newsletter. And when the package came out and it became the control and it was big success, everybody said, "Gene, what a great package you wrote." He said, "I didn't write it. Marty wrote it. I just went into his brain and pulled out all the stuff." Marty couldn't sit and write the package. That was Gene's genius. And he was amazing at it. So he could put poetry to anything, but it was getting that stuff out of Marty's brain that was so critical.
So how does that happen? Is it just that he was curious, or did he ask great questions? Like, what's the
magic?
I
mean, it's both. It's everything. I mean, I think Jay Abraham talks about the Socratic method of asking questions.
Yeah, he's good.
I have a document somewhere that how to ask good questions. But it's learned. It's a learned skill. But I think copywriters, because they have it in them with that insatiable curiosity, they are able to find those questions in addition to being trained on it. So it's both. But I think the best copywriters have insatiable curiosity and they dig deep. Number 3 is what I call feedback loops. You can't write creative by committee. The copywriter has to sit and write it the first draft, but you need to have a feedback loops to be able to go through it, or best people that will know the audience, or you'll explain the audience. They're usually other copywriters, and you do this, and the best copywriters always had people they could go to for feedback loops. Number 4 is passion. Most great copywriters started in one category, whether it was health or finance or taxes or something like that. And they just became so good at that category, and they could stay in that category and just dominate, but then they would branch out. But it's always narrow to wide. And every copywriter went through this process of being passionate about a particular category or product, and then they branched out. And then the fifth thing is that they had some direct marketing knowledge. You don't just want to write for food. Copywriter, Dan Kennedy always says this. You have to become not only a writer, but you have to become a trusted advisor on all aspects of marketing, and that includes lists and offers and everything that goes into it. And so understanding the 40-40-20 rule, understanding lifetime value, understanding RFM, recency, frequency, monetary, is not just for marketers. The copywriters had to know that too. And all the
Yeah.
great copywriters knew all the basics. In fact, a lot of them knew a lot more, direct marketing fundamentals. And then
Hmm.
number 6 is humility. You know, I always say you got to have confidence without arrogance. You got to be able to know your product. You got to be able to know that you can do this, you can write this control, but you can't go in without humility. I mean, I had a guy once write to me and he goes, Brian, I'll be the best copywriter that's ever walked in the door at Boardroom. This was like in 2013.
Hmm.
And I didn't know how to answer him. I mean, I kind of wanted to tell him to go take a hike, but I wouldn't do that. So what I did was I sent him an email back and I said, I don't know if you know the history of Boardroom or not, and I'm not bragging, but you know, I guess if you're the best copywriter that's ever walked in the door at Boardroom, you know, and in my mind, we work with Gene Schwartz, Gary Bencivenga, Clayton Makepeace, Jim Rutz. I mean, the best of the best. And now today we did Paris Lampropoulos, David Deutsch. I mean, the best of the best. And I said, if I don't know you, I mean, I've never heard of you. Shame on me. How can I not know who you are if you're the best?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
he gave me his site. I went to his site just to check. Maybe it's, you know, maybe he's great. He was not great,
Hmm.
put it bluntly. And I went back to him and I said, you know, I think I said something like, you know, I think you have some talent. You know, knowing that the people that have worked for us, you wouldn't be the best that's ever walked in the door at Boardroom by a long shot. But thanks for sending it. I don't think you're right for us. And he never wrote back. But that's an example. You don't walk in and say that. You walk in and say, I've seen your packages. And he didn't do any research on my
Hmm.
company either. I mean, to
Yeah.
not do research and say that was crazy. But
Yeah.
he could have gotten maybe an assignment over time if he
Sure.
walked in with a little humility. And then the 7th thing is basically, you know, it's your work, it's your, you know, and it's your portfolio. But in most cases, when people want to hire a copywriter, that's the first thing they ask for. Give me what you've written for. I want to know that they've got hunger, insatiable curiosity, feedback loops, passion, direct marketing knowledge, and humility, and then I'll look at their work. It's
See.
like when Henry Kissinger, the story goes, Henry Kissinger had a speechwriter, and the speechwriter came to him and he said, write this speech for me. He came to him, and before reading it, he says, it's not good enough, go back and write it again. He came back, not good enough, go back and write it again. 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time. Finally, the kid comes back and he says, you know, Henry, Mr. Kissinger, this is the best I can do. I can't do any better than this. And Henry Kissinger said, okay, now I'll read it.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. There seems to be a difference. I love reading old copy. I love reading books from old ad agency leaders. There's this break in digital history where when digital came online and we could all produce content so cheaply and fastly, we don't
Yes.
have to be good because we're not about to drop 100 grand on a mailer. You're just
Right,
gonna,
exactly.
yeah, you're gonna post a blog and it's gonna be, who cares? Fix it tomorrow. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
what's
I just put in the chat the legendsbook.com, which is my first book, The Advertising Solution, which profiled 6 great advertisers of
cool?
the 30s to the 70s, including David Ogilvy and
I'll,
Gary Halbert and Gene
I
Schwartz.
know Ogilvy on advertising. Great book.
Yeah, great book.
I'll drop that in the chat down here too. Welcome, Lori. And another question. What's the proof a copywriter has hunger? How do you see that?
You know, it's basically that they're going to show, not tell, show,
Mm,
not tell. So if they have hunger, they will be able to, instead of saying, I had a control here, I had a control there, they're going to be able to basically show you, they're going to say, or they're going to show something that they didn't write, actually. They're going to show, if they have hunger, they have a swipe file. They've been
mhm,
looking at all the promotion everywhere for a long time. So they're going to show you, this is something that just really made me vibrate. And I'll tell
mhm,
you why it did. As opposed to just telling them that, oh, I like this, and so that's a great way to identify hunger. And if they've written something that they're really proud of, they're going to show you why it beat the previous control and why they think it showed that they had hunger. Hunger sometimes is like, outworking everybody. And it's not like you're stepping on everybody's head to get to up the ladder, to get past them. What you're really doing, you're showing by example. So again, it's a show, not tell. You want to show somebody how good you are by showing some work that you did or showing some work that you admire. It either worked or why you admire it. That would show me a lot of hunger, because that means you've looked at a lot of different things that over time that would be incredible. So that's a really good way to identify hunger.
I love how data-driven your approach is here, because often, in particular, copy sometimes is seen as a soft skill and it's hard to nail it down. It's not the algorithm that we're using for running a Facebook ad or something like that. But you're really tracking before and after, or people who've done it before. Yeah, I love that. Can I ask you a couple more questions?
Yeah, sure.
Well, Franklin, thanks. Franklin says he loves that model you're just talking about. That's what he does with everything. And then Mike asked another question. How do you convince people to let you try to beat their controls?
I would go through, when I interviewed or I was talking to a copywriter. Sometimes I don't like copywriters saying I'll work on spec, like I'll just do it. You can mail it or not mail it. And if you mail it and it works, you can pay me. I don't like that, because if you're really that good, I should pay you for your time. So I never like letting them come in on a freebie and then paying them if it worked, because while that's a good model in a lot of places, pay to play. I always was not, I'd rather go through the process of hearing how they write, how they've gotten to where they are at the moment, what kind of passion they have for the category that I want them to write in. What kind of research that they'll do, because that'll tell me a lot more. Whether I'll hire them or not is another story. A lot of that is gut on, whether you can beat the control, so to speak. But I think that you really you can show me a lot of different things that will show me that, like, if you're a writer and come in and say, like, don't ask me about what lists I've mailed to this product or what lists worked and what lists didn't, I'm a little skeptical, because any copywriter would want to know that. They want to know who the avatar is. They want to know, who they're writing to. And one of the best ways to do that is to look at the list, or if it's online, the affiliates that you've used, or the email list that you've used. I had a chapter 3 of my book, Over Deliver, which people can get at overdeliverbook.com, with a lot of bonuses. But chapter 3 was,
I'll drop that link in here in a minute too, guys. It'll be right there.
How paying postage made me a better marketer. And it was similar to what you were talking about, that, the idea that you had to pay for postage and printing made you a lot more disciplined, a lot more careful to get 2% response. That was the goal, usually 2 to 3, maybe 4% response gross. And to do that, you really had to be so conscientious and so thorough. And the online email marketers, for example, when they say, and you mentioned this, when they say that, it's just, I'll just throw it out there, I'll hit send, and if I get no orders, I'll try something else. You don't realize that even though it doesn't cost you in paper and postage, it's going to cost you if it's inappropriate, if it's not targeted, because people will give up on you. If you, let's say I have a list and I take affiliates for my list. I don't, but if you take affiliates for your list, and so I have a meditation practice and I'm doing meditation things. So I might have an offer for yoga. I might have an offer for personal improvement of some sort. If I throw an offer at that, for real estate investing, my list is going to say, and I use that as an example because it actually happened. Not me, but a guy who had a personal improvement, and he's going to get a lot of unsubscribes. His open rate's going to go down, and he's not being congruent with his list, and that is as important as anything else. So I think an email marketer or an online marketer should not think that because it's an email and it's cheap, that they can basically send them anything, and if it doesn't work, it's no big deal. It is a big deal.
Boy, it's a great supporting argument for having a niche and really boiling down and we come up with that. It comes up a lot in this group. Some people love it, some people don't. Some people want to be generalists, and I'm not shaming or pushing back at anybody if you want to do that. But having a really well-defined niche where you can really dive in is so important, and it makes everything else you do so much easier because you're going to get to know your people, and you have
Yeah,
to know.
when I went to I've been to I've spoken internationally quite a bit. So I've been in Hungary, I've been in France, I've been in Italy, I've been in Germany, I've been in the Netherlands. I remember when I went to Hungary, I was a little really taken aback because I realized going in that that country was communist until 1989. So these are Hungarian entrepreneurs. How's that for an oxymoron?
That's
So I had to go in there, and so and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because you mentioned niche. My speech to them I basically put it into three categories, very, very straightforward. The first category was why marketing is not evil. That I had to get out of the way. That marketing is not selling, and it's not I wasn't the ugly American who's going to price gouge everybody, and I want to get the most sales, and I want to reach into your wallet and grab your money. I had to do a whole thing about congruent marketing and all that. But number two was specialization is everything. And I tried to let them know that, going narrower and narrower and narrower and getting everything you can out of that, as opposed to trying to get that at the beginning. You emphasized it. I just wanted to tell you that was critical going into a country that needed to know what they should do if they were marketing a product for the first time. And specialization, uniqueness, you never want to, if you're marketing something that's a commodity, all you're going to do is differentiate on price. But if you have a specialty, you get so much more money for it. You create excitement, you create, and then you can create the creative around that, that basically, there's no competition, basically.
So true. All right, one last question, folks. I think Franklin's going to wrap it up for us. By the way, welcome, Sheridan. Good to see you too. Franklin asks, it sounds like the best copywriters are also consultants, or does it work the other way around?
Dan Kennedy went to AWAI. He goes to AWAI. He did often. And he always used to say that if you want to write for food, you can do that. But and he always talked about, I don't like the word consultant. When you say you're a consultant, it sounds like you're unemployed. But, I think a consultant copywriter is the best kind of copywriter. And so you don't want to maybe call yourself a consultant copywriter. You want to call yourself, a business strategist who will write your copy, but I'm not going to write your copy until I understand everything about your business, all the lists you've mailed, all the offers you've made. I want to look at all of your products. I want to dive deep into all your niches and see which one is best for me. So the answer is 100% yes. If you're a copywriter that's just writing for food, you can make a living, and it's not bad. If you want to be, $1 million copywriter, you've got to be more than just writing for food. And so the key is, understanding as much as you can about direct marketing, about the niche you're writing for, about the research you're going to do, is going to make you so much more valuable. And then once you write something successful, they're going to want to come back for more. And you may even be able to get on retainer and then charge a premium for your packages would be ideal, because you're always a resource. When some other copywriter comes along who's writing for food, they might want to show that to you. You're almost like an outsourced creative director. And this is, that's what I think that's one of the keys. So really good question. I don't like the word consultant. Dan used it, and I've used it, but I don't like it because it's kind of like, anybody who's a consultant is like looking for something to do. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about I'm a copy chief. I'm a copy sleuth, and that includes being, really understanding the business at that deep level. And it's a barrier to switch for the client. They're not going to want to leave you, even if you write a loser package, because you gave them so much other valuable information, but that takes time. You've got to educate yourself. As you said, looking at and I'm not saying looking at the past for nostalgia, looking at the past for clues as to what could work, currently. So that would be critical. So I really, I endorse the idea of being much more than just a copywriter. Yes. And yes.
Love it. So Franklin says, great answer. Thanks so much, Brian. That's kind of what I'm slowly growing into. I'll never call myself a consultant again now, though. Ha ha. Yeah.
Yeah. Make up a title. I'm a copywriter / business development or something. But yeah, consultant is kind of a tough word, but you can get away with it.
Well, we have to wrap it up because I try to teach everybody in this group to freaking get off Facebook because you're going to waste your life on Facebook, but not in this group, right? This group.
No, and also we're home. Look at my hair. Look at that shit. Look at that shit.
Hey, Mike says, dude, get Brian on tomorrow. Dennis says thumbs up and loves it. Man, Brian, can't thank you enough for just graciously giving us time like this to answer questions and really get some amazing value.
Well, thank you for organizing the group. I don't join every Facebook group. I'm not like that. I'm not a Facebook groupie, I guess. But I did see your group, and it sounded really interesting. You talked about organizing it from your heart, and it's what you believe in, and that got me excited, and it led to this, which is great. And what led to a call with you, because you and that's what you did. You reach out to everybody who becomes a member. You didn't know who I was, and that's fine. And so then we talked, and I said, "Oh, I could talk. I could go on a Facebook."
Heck yeah, man.
We're finding
the best stuff ever like this. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to put briankurtz.net. I'm also going to put overdeliverbook.com and the legendsbook.com in the chat down here. Is there any other way you want people to reach out to you, or is that the place to find you?
Yeah, I mean, the briankurtz.net has everything in there. It's got my Over Deliver book and advertising. That's my main site. If you're not on my list, you can get on my list for free. There's a lot of free content at briankurtz.net. I blog every Sunday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern time. You get a blog from me. It's all content. Sometimes in the PS, I sell my Titans Accelerator Mastermind or whatever, but I'm not all sales. I'm all content with a little bit of selling. And all my selling is educational. And overdeliverbook.com and the legendsbook.com are where you should buy my book, because from those sites, you go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, wherever you want to buy the book, you come back to the site, you put your order number in, and you get incredible bonuses. Overdeliverbook.com has thousands of dollars worth of bonuses just for buying a $17 book. So it's
Seems appropriate for a book titled that way. You should have a lot of over delivery. I love it.
Exactly. I said what I thought about it. I said, I have a book called Over Deliver. I better over deliver. And so I would suggest, even if you're not going to buy the book, just go see it. It's pretty cool. I got Jay Abraham in there, Dan Kennedy, Perry Marshall. It's a great site. So yeah.
Love those. Okay. So as I say every time I have a guest on here, I don't do affiliates. There is no connection. Brian, you can confirm that if you'd like to. He is not paying me. I'm not getting a penny out of anything there's no connection here financially. So thank you, Brian.
I don't make any money on the books. I just like people to be on my list. That's
I think it's great. And anybody who's checking out, obviously we have Brian here, and y'all are all freaking loving Brian. I am too. But anybody who wants to know how to do this and do this well, you should jump into Brian's community, join his list, learn from him, not just from his free content or books you can get from him, but also see how he goes through the process. He educates and over delivers to such an extent that you'll just simply learn how to serve your own clients, your own market, and your own world by just emulating what you see him doing. So jump in there and watch it, read the emails, go through the whole thing. He's living what he preaches right there in front of you. So
I would just say one thing, some people call me the director of sales prevention, which is kind of an interesting name, but I'm not a nonprofit. I like to make sales, but what I do is, I think the distinction is I fish without bait. So fishing with bait, you have a hook, you have in the water. I think I mentioned this to you on our first call. And so you bring the fish in, you get them in a funnel, you sell them. That's great. But I fish without bait. I shine a light over the lake All the fish are in there. They're reading my content. They're doing it. I basically say, I'm here when you need me. And some fish jump in the boat on their own. Some never do. And it's fine because they just keep absorbing the content and they go off and multiply in their own world. So that's a really good thing. So sorry about the phone. I just didn't.
Dude, are you kidding? I'm taking notes. I'm going to get a phone. I'm going to get an old school phone that I can pick up and slam like a newspaper editor.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, my mother's going to kill me if it's my mother. So anyway.
All right. Mike, one last comment. Mike says, Brian has the most badass emails. They're super long and have awesome marketing lessons. Boom. There you go. That is.
And he read them. God, he reads them.
Brian's reading, dude. Oh no, Mike's reading them. All right, man. Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on here. I so appreciate your time. I know you got a lot to do, and especially in this crazy time right now, dude, super relevant.
Yeah, very excited to be.
I'll drop all these links in the Facebook group for everybody else. And we might talk Brian into coming back sometime in the future, but woo, that was a lot right there. We just got to consume what we got and try to actually take action on what he taught us. All right.
We'll be in touch.
Brian.